Hi, welcome to the Craft Channel. My name's Corinne and today I want to bust a few myths about overlocking and cover stitch machines. So I've been lucky enough to be lent the Husqvarna Viking Amber Air S600, which is a combination overlocker or serger and cover stitch machine. Now, I've never used an overlocker. I've only ever used domestic sewing machines with a top thread and a bobbin thread. So this was all a bit new to me. In fact, it took me a couple of weeks to take it out of the box, but I've had a play with it for a couple of days, so I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I just want to go through a few features of the machine so that if you've ever gone, oh, I can't use an overlocker, there's too many threads, you can see how simple it actually is. You get lots of stuff with the machine. You get your extension table. You get your thread catcher table that just slots in the front here, which is great if you're doing a lot of dressmaking because it will catch all the pieces it cuts off. You have your knee lift bar, which I won't use today because I'm not sitting in the right position. You've also got a couple of covers. Now, this larger one is when you're using it as a cover stitch machine because you won't be using the thread cutter. And the smaller one is for when you're using it as a serger cover stitch machine, and it just clips on. I have to get this right. Clips on like that. So it just prevents your fingers going anywhere near anything that's going to hurt them. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'd like you to see what goes on inside the machine. So I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to be very careful. You've also got your accessory box with all kinds of things to help you with your threading. The two things I'm going to take out of there are my little tiny Allen key for changing the needles and the needle threader. So let's just close this up a minute. Oh, I'm also going to take out my pointer and my tweezers. Now, when you first turn this machine on, you'll be terrified. This is why. You haven't broken it. What it's doing is it's calibrating itself, and it will do that every time you turn it on if your foot pedal is up. The way that an overlocker works is instead of it being a sewing machine where the needle goes down, catches the bottom thread and comes up, it's almost like a knitting machine because you have these things here, like the upper looper and down here the lower loopers, that somehow wrap the thread around the needle threads. I don't know the exact science of it. What I do know is that there's 28 different stitches. If you have a look up here, 26 different stitches, which all use a different combination. I'm going to start with a 4-thread overlock. And this screen, the stitch selection screen, tells you everything that you need to know. So it tells you what needle type you want, where you want to position the needles. If you click here, it would allow you to change the tension on any of the pieces by simply going up and down, but it sets an automatic tension, and I've found that you need to rely on that automatic tension. It's fine. It's also quite handy because it tells you which bits you thread up. So the fact that there's nothing in this purple box here means I'll have nothing on that last spool. Let's just pop that back. And there are various adjustments that you can make when you're sewing. You can change the stitch width to a degree, you can change the stitch length. You've also got a differential feed, which if you drive a car and you turn a corner, you've got a differential that makes one wheel turn slower than the other wheel. You can have the same thing on this machine. So when you're turning curves, your feed will take it through and the stitch will stay perfect. And you can have a concave or a convex curve. Again, if you're an expert and you make garments, you'll probably know all about that. I don't make garments as a rule because nothing ever makes me look like a size 14, so I've not bothered anymore. But that's something else I need to play around with. But I'm going to show you now how easy this is to thread. And this was the thing that mainly put me off ever having a go with an overlocker because there's just too many threads. So you've got your thread control here. I'll just show you this. This just clips off the back. So 3 threads on one side, 2 on the other. Oh, now I've got to try and put it back on again. And I've chosen threads that correspond actually with the colours on the top of the machine, because I've found that much easier. And what you need to do is you need to thread from left to right. Don't try and skip any steps here, because you'll end up with problems if you get your threads crossed. Also, don't cheap out on your threads. When I first used this, I did use quite a low brand of thread and I could not get it to sew right. And in the end, it was just the thread. There were slubs in it. It was catching. It wasn't doing it properly. So we'll start with this first needle thread, the yellow one. Thread it through the thread guide into the clip, and you need to bring your front cover of your machine down here. Going through the tension discs, comes under here, and then if you put that on the furthest little tooth that there is on the comb, over this bit here, got far too much thread there, hold on a minute, and again on the wire thread guide, put it on the furthest one, because this is your left hand thread and it needs to be farthest away, and this is where you'll need your tweezers just to put that in the right little slot. Now I've got needles here, and I don't know if you can see them. Let me just raise them up a bit. You'll see that the needles are two slightly different heights. The reason that is because when your loopers come in, your loopers will get confused with the needles if they're at the same height. So there's a reason for that. The needles are put in and out with the Allen key, just unscrews and screws up, and you push them up as far as you can go. And the diagram here shows you that you want a needle in A and B. So let's just thread needle A. I could use my needle threader, but I sometimes get that wrong as well. So that's needle A. Just put it through like you would a normal sewing machine. Tuck it under the presser foot. Oh. And over to the left. So my next thread is going to be a blue. Okay, this is a green, it's close. And I'm going to thread this in exactly the same way down here, and this runs parallel to your first thread. Tuck it under there. The reason I'm looking so cack-handed at the minute is because I would normally sit front onto this machine as any normal human being would sit. But in order for you to see the workings, I'm having to put it on its side. So I'm a little bit clumsier than I would normally be. So that's the second one threaded. And again, take it under the foot and over to the left. And then you get the interesting bit, which is the loopers, these two loopers here. Now, down here, you have a special lever, which is a threading guide and a sewing guide. That is really important when you're doing your threading up your machine, because, well, I'll show you. Let me just put my spools on first. Again, a red one here, or pink, into the top cradle, through here. And because these are the loopers, this just clips in to the thread guide there. And then you want to give yourself quite a bit of thread, and you want to pop that down your hole there. And then what you want to do, and this is the great thing about this is an air threader. It's literally a one-touch operation. Move the lever here from the stitching position to the threading position. Turn your flywheel so that your tubes are locked. I'm just going to show you that again, because can you see in here, you've got these ends of tubes. if you push it into the threading position and turn your flywheel, they will suddenly click in to seal the tubes. So then what you do, if you press this threading button here, it sucks your thread through. I don't know if you saw it just come out the top there. Pulls it through. I'm just going to do that again so that you can, the camera can focus on this top threader, top looper, sorry. So pop it in the tube. Make sure your tubes are locked. Press the button and then just watch here. It spits the thread out for you. And that was the main reason I never touched an overlocker, because I had no idea how you would thread these things up. So we'll do exactly the same with the final thread that I need on this, which is a green. Put it into position. Tuck the end of the thread into your corresponding hole. Give yourself a bit of slack on it. And this one comes up here, I believe. There you go. Give it a bit more. And with this one, because of the position of it, you're best to bring it between the thread cutter and the foot and leave it over to the left. So that's your machine threaded up, which is incredibly quick and incredibly easy. Before you go any further, take your lever here back to the sewing position. Close your lid up. And then what we do to get the thread started is if you hold your threads to the back here, I don't know if you can actually, let's try that with the other, I don't really want to try that with the other hand. Hold them to the back. I'll try and lean over so that you can see what I'm doing. And then press your foot pedal, and what you need to do is you need to get this knit started. So, here we go. Oh, my presser foot's up. Thank you for reminding me. Take your presser foot down and just do it a couple of times by hand, because what there is, and I don't know if you can see that in there, let's use a little pointer. There is a small bar here which is what the threads wrap around to make the knit. So you need to get a few stitches on that to start with by hand. And then if you go, you can see the start of your overlock. That obviously is not on any fabric, but what you can do, and again, you're going to have to forgive me because I'm not a dressmaker. I'm not going to make you a garment. I'm a domestic sewer. But what you can do with this overlock is you can make some great stash buster, eco-friendly towels for the kitchen. This is just an old bathroom towel that doesn't go with the bathroom anymore. I've cut it into pieces. I am actually going to put my little thread catcher tray on so that I don't make too much of a mess of the studio. And I've overlocked all the way around the outside of this. Now, I was saying about the differential feed. I've turned a corner on. I've turned a curve on this. This is going to have to be done by eye because I haven't got to grips with the differential feed. But once you've got your stitch started, if you just lift your presser foot, pop your fabric in there, but so that it's not actually under the needles, because you really can't get your fabric in there because you've got a stitch. But you can start here and then you run it through and it connects up. I'm going to stop waffling. I'm going to show you what I mean. I also want to point out to you that as you work, this thing here, I don't know, let's just pull it out. This is your thread cutter. It will trim the edge of your fabric as you're doing it. So even if your cutting is the shoddiest thing in the world, this will clean it up. So press foot's down, fabric's in, I've started my chain stitch, wish me luck. And can you see that's cutting that fabric? I've also just realised that really what I do need to do is put that guard on. because otherwise I'm going to end up with fabric in the gubbins of my machine, and I'll get told off. And it does protect my fingers. And the reason I haven't done corners, straight corners, is because that's 2 needles. You can't just put your needle in, lift the foot, pivot your fabric like you can on a normal machine. There are ways of turning corners, which I've not yet really explored. But for a project such as this, simple washcloths, or, you know, scrubbing cloths for the kitchen, or for makeup removal, it doesn't matter if your corners aren't perfect. And you can manipulate the fabric quite easily. Now you'll see I've got a long tail of overlock stitches here. I'm going to try and avoid cutting them off, because what I want to do is I actually want to weave them into the back of this to seal it. And when I reach the beginning again, because you can't just stop, reverse, lock stitch it and get it out, because that's not the way it works. It's knitted together, it's looped together, not just one loop. You need to just run it off the edge of your fabric and give yourself some extra stitches here. So you can see the waist that it's cut off quite neatly, and you can see the edges of the stitching, back and front, with your 4 threads. Now, what you want ideally with your overlocker is you want your threads to loop up on the edge of your fabric. There's a new feature on this machine which is called the precise thread control, which is this little lever down here. I don't know if you can see that little plus minus one. And you can take it up and down, so that if you find your threads are looping on one side or the other, you can adjust it so it sits perfectly on the edge. Again, something I really need to have more experience with. But just to finish this off, all I would do to finish my ends off is take my threads in a darning needle and weave them through the stitch in the washcloth. So it's not the neatest finish on a home deck project, because this is simply an environmentally friendly way of getting rid of some of those kitchen towels and horrible plastic sponges and stuff like that that you would normally have in your kitchen. It's a great stash buster, and it's just made so much quicker by using an overlocker. But as I said, this machine is not just an overlocker. This machine is also a cover stitch machine. And the difference between an overlocker and a cover stitch machine, as far as I know, is an overlocker you will use for garment making, for sewing seams that don't fray, that stay strong. A cover stitch machine you would use for sewing neat hems, like I have done on some other little samples that I've made up for you, which are effectively baby dribble bibs. Or not dribble bibs, but they're little baby wipe up bits. You know, you could keep a pot of this kind of size in a Tupperware container with a bit of water in it instead of wet wipes, and then you can just pop them in the wash. So what I've got is I've got a nice double stitched hem around the outside of it, and then it's not overlocked, but you have this nice fray-free edge. Now again, I haven't turned any corners on this. You're going to have to bear with me on this. Everything's got round corners in my demonstration because I've found it's the easiest and quickest way to get a result. And that's what I'd like you to do, is actually get a result from your machine as quickly and easily as possible. But what I need to do is I need to change this. So I'm just going to show you how. First of all, I'm going to take that cover off. And second of all, what I need to do is I need to take all the threads out again. So I'm just going to, and I'm not sure if this is the way I'm supposed to do it, I'm just going to cut my threads and then allow the machine to draw them out. And then there's a couple of things you need to do to turn this into a cover stitch machine. First of all, you want to find the cover stitch that you want to use, which is, I've got here cover stitch triple. Is that the one I was using? Hold on. No, cover stitch wide. And this shows me I need a thread in the first needle thread, a thread in the second needle thread, and a thread in the final looper. Because you're not going to use this top looper or this middle one. What you're going to do is you need to get rid of the top looper first of all. So there's a lever down here, A and B, and there's a little diagram in here which you probably can't see, but there's a picture of this looper sticking above the surface and a picture sticking below the surface. You need to get the looper as low as you can, this top looper, move it to position B, and then when you carry on, what happens, it's disabled, that looper. It's not moving anymore. It's just moving the two bottom loopers. I need to move my needles because I need a needle in position C and position E. So grab your Allen key and unscrew both of those screws. Just tighten them up a little bit so they don't run loose as you're working on the machine. And we'll put one needle in position C. As usual, the flat part of the needle goes to the back. Let's just pop them out of the way a minute. I'm looking very cat-handed. Again, I'm not in an ideal sewing position. And in fact, what I want to do is I just want to spin that round so you can see again when I thread it. So there's one needle in position C, and then second needle goes in position E. And this is because I want a wide cover stitch. I'm pretty sure that if I wanted a narrow cover stitch, position D would be used. Just check they're in there. Let me just run that and check that they're okay. Let's give myself a bit of slack on these threads, and again, thread them up as you normally would. Oh, lift to press the foot. That releases the tension, just like it would on a normal machine. You can see what I mean about I am still learning about this. But it's actually so much more intuitive and so much simpler than I ever thought it would be. I'm a bit ashamed of myself for never considering using an overlocker or a cover stitcher before. That's because I'm a dinosaur and I don't like change. Let's just thread that other needle. Like so. And again, take them under the foot and round the back and over to the left. And then I'm not going to use these two threads or this green thread. I am going to use this pink one. And I think actually I probably should have threaded this thread here up through this third tension disky bit. I'm going to take a chance here because I don't think it makes an awful lot of difference if they're both on a top needle. We'll find out in a minute when I set it. I know this because I've got 2 top threads and only 1 looper thread. So again, we'll just pop your thread down the tube, give yourself plenty of slack, set this to the feed position again and allow the tubes to click in place. Now this one, I believe, comes up through this looper here, this bottom looper. There you go. If you ever press that button and you're like, well, nothing's happening, it's not coming out, 9 times out of 10, it's because you haven't given yourself enough slack on that thread. And although the air on this is quite strong and it's strong enough to push your thread through, it's probably not strong enough to take it off the reel. So you need to make sure you've got enough slack so that it can push it through easily. And here it is. We'll take that under the foot, like so. Oh, that's another good trick. You can't shut your cover if you've left the air threader in the wrong position. Again, I thought I'd broken the machine. The other thing you need to do is you need to get rid of the cutter because you're sewing a hemmed edge. What you don't want is you don't want that cutter to then take off your nice fold. You simply pull this out by the screw, bring it around. Oh, you need to do it with the cover off because otherwise it won't let you do it. Bring it around and drop it down so it's out of place. You actually get a spare cutter in the accessory drawer, which is handy. But if you're only cutting fabric, which you would only do on a machine, the chances of you having to replace that are fairly slim because it will stay sharp. Right, I'm also going to put the front guard on for cover stitching, which hides all the gubbins. And then I'm just going to take a minute to check that I've done everything I need to do. So needle in position C and E and the looper thread in the lower looper. Now again, this is the kind of thing that you can't, I don't think you can just put your fabric in like you would with a normal machine. What you need to do is you need to put your foot down. Again, run a few hand stitches. So now I can actually hem my little wipe. What I have done is I've tacked this hem because of the corners. I've given it a good tack and a press because I want to be able to do this in one fell swoop. Sometimes a little bit of preparation in advance is worth doing because the number of times I had to unpick this just because my work was so shoddy because I just didn't know what I was doing at the time. I'm not convinced I know what I'm doing now, but it's a start. So you're going to run this through. And the great thing with jersey material is you can manipulate it. You can stretch it to fit it where you want it to go. Just run it off the edge. And what you will notice with this cover stitch is it will come undone. It will just, rather like those bags of animal feed that you get where you pull one thread and the whole of the bag comes open. That's what it is. That's a cover stitch that they use on that. So if you continue to pull that, all your stitching will come undone. So in order to prevent that happening, I need to find my darning needle again and do exactly the same as I did with the kitchen towels, which is just pop that through on the other side. So there you go. Now, if you're buying an overlocker stroke cover stitch combination machine for dressmaking, this isn't the kind of project you'll be doing. But you can see with this, with the stretch material, this is the kind of stitch that you need for hemming t-shirts. There's a lot of clothes reuse and alteration doing now. You know, if you want to shorten a t-shirt, if you want to take in the size of a shirt, this machine is perfect. And I never thought I'd want an overlocker. And I've got to give this back, and I'm not very happy about it, if I'm honest. Neither's my daughter, who's just started making clothes. But hey-ho, I'll save up. But it's just so much easier than I ever thought it would be. And again, it's quite intuitive. There are various other settings on here that I've not really had the opportunity to explore. But the great thing is you can find a stitch to suit your needs. And even if you just have a play around with it, thread it up. Every time you thread it up, thread it from left to right. Every time you thread it up, take it out, start again from scratch, because chances are it will be human error if your machine goes wrong. It won't be the machine's error. It's lovely. At the minute, I think this, at time of filming, this is the only one in the country, so I have to be quite careful with it. But I hope that's given you an idea how easy an overlocker can be, because I've done a lot of crafts for a lot of years. I was terrified of them. I've used this now for 2 days and I really like it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can make some use of it. Just make some little practice projects out of scrap fabric to start with, and you'll soon be on your way. Please come see us again very, very soon. In the meantime, keep safe, keep sewing, and thank you very much for watching. If you've been inspired to create, please share your makes with us in the comments section below. And if you've enjoyed videos by the Crafts channel, hit the like button. Want to see more of us? Then click subscribe. See you next time.